Thanks for joining me. We are looking at the Andante and Allegro for harp and violin by Donizetti. This piece, again, this is new to me. I don't know it. So we're going to be looking at it together for the very first time. Let's get an idea of the tempo that we would be playing it, a tempo, which is 54 to the quarter note. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, and 2, and 1, 2. But we're not going to start out that fast. So I did something that is not recommended. I read through a piece without listening to the original. If it's out there and you can find a video, listen to it, because it is very informative of the piece, the tempo, how fast it goes, how slow it goes. And I'm admitting to that mistake. It's something that I did not do with this piece. So, as you watch this video, please keep in mind that the tempo that I take is way too fast. It should be played half the speed that I'm playing it in this lesson video. So please keep in mind that as you're going through it, it's actually bum, 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 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we have time to breathe, we have time to move. Please keep that in mind as you go through the rest of this video lesson. So, just get a feel for those notes. We are on the key of D minor, 1 flat, F flat. And we start out with the lovely D chord, and this is a quick chord that's played twice because we have a pickup to the downbeat. And because it's quick, usually what would be encouraged of closing when playing, now we're not going to close, we have no time to close. We'll close after the second chord, but not the first one. C sharp, good grief. What I would do for these octaves, successive octaves, is hands separately. So, right hand takes the top. And I would do a 4 slide. You can do 4, 3, 2, 1, 2, or you can do 4, 4, 3, 2, 1. So maybe with the time that we have, it'd be easier to not do the 4 slide, just 4, 3, 2, 1, 2. B natural, C sharp. We already have C sharp. Then we're to the statement of the melody when the violin comes in, measure 5. Keeping C sharp, and it looks like keeping B natural. Kind of have to look. If there's no point in, if we don't need the change of pedals, then don't change the pedals back to the key. But we do need C sharp, so we'll keep it. So let's just keep going. And we talked about this earlier in terms of understanding our chords. It's really important to kind of know what we're playing so that we don't have to sit there and freak out reading notes and making sure that we're still on the same notes. If we read the first chord, that first 6 note pattern, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and we look at those notes, F, A, D. Left hand is starting with the tonic. Right hand is continuing that figure of the chord, and that chord that we're playing is D minor chord, which, hello, makes sense, it's our tonic in D minor. So, if that's the case, take a look at those next 2 measures and realize that we're playing the same thing. So now we don't have to freak out for 2 measures, we're playing the same thing. B flat. So yes, indeed, we do need B flat. So what I would do is at measure 5, make that B flat. Because in measure 10, we play it. And then we've got got some more pedal changes here. So first things first, as you're going through, have that pencil handy and start writing in the pedal changes. And as you're going through, it's helpful to write in pedal charts. Throw in those pedal charts everywhere so that when your instructor or your contemporary says, hey, we're going to play second page, measure 20, whatever, we as harpists need to know, okay, there we are. Usually give us 2 seconds to figure out what the pedal chart is and change those pedals, but you should have a pedal chart. You should know what the pedals are so that you don't have to sit there and go back 5 measures to figure out what's our pedal chart supposed to be. Understand that, write those in. That is a good preparation for first rehearsal. Because you do not want the conductor or anyone else waiting on you to try and figure out what your pedals are. Let's go back to measure 5 and let's talk about rhythm. We are in 2/4. 2 beats in every measure, quarter note gets the beat, and we have a 6 figure, so that means we have to fit in 6 notes for every beat. The right hand is a continuation of those 6 notes. It's only playing 5 notes because the left hand is playing the first note. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So instead of feeling it in 6, feel it in 2 because it's 54. Feel those 6 notes in every beat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So really feel that, but we're not starting out that fast, so just feel it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 1, and 2, and 1, and 2, and 1, and 2, and 1, and when you can, as you're learning something, try to implement the dynamics as soon as possible. And for the reason alone that when you're practicing it, practicing the dynamics is important because you want those dynamics to be nice and polished for performance. We're not going to wait until the last, several weeks of learning a piece, if we've been learning it for months, to implement those dynamics because they're not going to feel natural and normal. So just start to put in those dynamics as soon as possible. And we can do that with measure 9 because we've been playing that figure several times, so we know. We can really crescendo and work that dynamic in. As you keep going, put in your pedal changes. E flat, G sharp, B natural, G natural, G natural, E natural. What am we doing here? No. It's just E natural. Same thing. Then at the top of page 2, we're back to our D minor chord. And then we have something different here at the meno mosso. If we're looking at just right hand. To write in the pedal changes here. So follow that top line first with your thumb that you're playing with your thumb. F, G, F, E, F, E flat, F, C sharp. And then D, C natural. We got some interesting figure here going on. I would do 3, 2, 1, 3, 2, 1. You could do 4, 3, 2, 1, 2, 1. I would probably do 4, 3, 2, 1, 2, 1. Whatever's comfortable for you. You have to play through it several times, find out what works for you. And then I would go back to the meno mosso And I would look at the left hand. So F, B, C, C, F, G, A, D minor chord, then I would try and add hands together. Haha, hello Elizabeth. I would write in the fingerings. As you're going through something like this, if there's a section like this in particular, for instance, let's go back to measure 14, top of this page. It's self-explanatory, should be self-explanatory, that when you have that figure, that sixth figure in your right hand, you're doing 3, 2, 1, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3. It's what fits naturally to the fingers for those chords and what you should be playing. However, at measure 17 for the left hand, it might be helpful to write in the fingers. For me it would be, because then I know every time I come back to that and I'm practicing it, I'm playing the same exact fingering, so I'm not having to sit there and search. It's a muscle memory thing too, so that when I do the same fingerings every single time, I know when I come back it's going to be this figure. I'm going to sit there and I'm going to put my fingers on the harp just like that. So 4, 2, 1, 4, 2, and then octaves. So I would write that in. Don't be lazy. There's no excuse. Write it in. And then we're there. And when you write them and when you write the notes in, be very clear, be legible, write legibly so that you can read it. You're not sitting there having to think, oh my gosh, I'm having to rely on my handwriting, I can't read it. Just write neatly. It will make a world of difference every single time you come to a piece, especially if it's been years since you've played it and you come back to it and you can't read your handwriting. What's the point? Be respectful of the piece, the composer, the music, and write clearly so that you can read it. Tempo, we have F. I don't have that low F on this harp, so I'm leaving it out. D natural. Again, as you're going through, write in the pedal changes. We're up to E. Sometimes I have to count with these ledger lines. That's a C sharp, which we still have. What the heck are we doing here? So, this chord is a do, ti, la, so, fa, mi, so E, A, C sharp, I'm at measure 31, E, A, C sharp, E, G sharp, D, E, A, C sharp, G natural, A, E. So making sure it looks a little cluttered in there with all those ledger lines, but what will help is understanding what chords you're playing and writing your pedal charts in, your pedal changes. And then at the odd tempo we are back to, but the right hand is now taking 4 on top of the 3, 2, 1, 4. Hello Elizabeth, but we're in a different key. Pay attention to the key change. So now we have 2 sharps and now we're in D major instead of D minor. that the harp is mimicking the violin, not the same notes, so you'll want to make sure that you're together right there at that 6/8 bar, so that when you're playing that 1 2 3 4 5 6 1 2 3 4 5 6 1 2 3 4 5 6 1 2 3 4 5 6. All right, so now I'm at the top of page 4. That keeps going. Then 40, 41, pick up to 42. We have this a tempo, poco, meno. So we have a fermata. So what's good here, usually, is if you haven't been paying attention visually to your violinist, this is when you pay attention. You should have been paying attention visually to your violinist. They usually have this beautiful, these gestures so that we know when there are downbeats coming, they're phrasing. But here, you want to follow. So we have 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1. But we want to be together because we're playing the same rhythm that the violin is playing. So really paying attention either out of the corner of your eye if you can look up, because get that finger set on A. That thumb set on A. Look at your violinist. Breathe together. You have the ability to breathe together with the violinist. Something you can do at 43 to 44. So take a look at left hand 43. 4 3 2 1 2 3 4 3 2 1 2 3, and then we play a D chord above that C. So what I would do in terms of fingering is I would do 4 3 2 1 2 3 4 3 2 1 2 4, slide that 4 to the D, and we're set up ready to go. Jumps down. So really find that D fast from measure 45 to 46. In measure 45, which kind of glossed over, 1 2 3 1 2 3 2. One of those moments where you play through it a few times, figure out what fingering you want to do. We're outlining a G minor chord here. Whatever you decide to do, write that fingering in so that every time you come to it, you are doing exactly the same thing. Measure 46. Interesting here in terms of the notes and how it fits in the hands. I would have to go listen to a recording if we can find one and figure out how fast, how slow this goes, so I have a better idea. Why do we do that? We do that to understand the piece better. We do that to understand the phrasing better, give us options for what the composer intended, the past practice of the way it's been played. But also, it helps us decide what fingerings we're choosing. For instance, from measure 46 to 47, our left hand is completely busy. Left hand cannot help out with right hand. It's doing its own thing. Right hand is on its own. So if that's the case, it's getting from that G octave to that B flat. And really depending on how fast we go, because if we go If this really moves, if this is a quick pace, then there might not be time to play that lower G. With the right notes in the left hand, of course. But educate yourself on how fast this goes so you can have a better understanding of what fingers to choose. Next page is very similar to the beginning of the piece. No, hold on a second. I have these out of order. I'm so sorry. Page 5 is not very similar to the beginning of the piece. So we end that section. With a rallentando and a diminuendo. So start to practice those dynamics as soon as possible. Then we have an allegro section. Oh boy. 120, 2/4, 120 to the quarter note. We keep the same pedal chart, pedals, C sharp and F sharp. So here, it's quick. So if you have the option and you're doing a repeated chord, come back to that note or that chord fast, because the way it is written is not quarter notes. It's written as eighth notes with eighth rests. So that's telling us that we want it to be nice and clear. So we're going to come back and muffle those strings as quickly as possible. And you'll notice that, always notice what the violin is doing as well. The violin has some separated notes. So not a lot of slurring going on. Really nice, I wouldn't say dry, but clean. Oh my goodness. So I don't know this piece at all, but this section right here looks a little daunting. I would have to very slowly I'm wondering if this was written I would have to very slowly work on that section there, because that seems fast and a challenge. But in the meantime, do what I just did, which is right hand, top line, so that we can really hear it. Because now, notice what the violin is doing. The violin is basically on the beats doing chords, so they're supplying this harmonic structure for us, this harmonic bass, and we have the melody now. So if that's the case, what really matters here is getting that melody to shine through. So if the rest of it is challenging, technically challenging, then focus on what's important through this section, and that is the melody. I would have to come back to that, but let's keep going. 6, we go on. We go on. That's fast. Dee da 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 da. Dee da da da. Woo! We got 16th notes coming up there. Measure 80. That's lovely. I would have to very slowly go through the top of page 6 there, just to go through. And you'll notice in that first measure, page 6, that's measure 71. F, F, right hand, F, A sharp, C. So we can't obviously play that F together, same finger. Just leave it out of one hand. right hand dies. Lot of 16th notes in the right hand. Violin has the melody again. So really what matters here is maintaining that harmonic structure, making sure we're getting the chords are speaking well. I wouldn't, you know, if I were practicing at this and it absolutely had to be at 120, I would hope I had a lot of time to do it. If not, then I would drop some notes and just make sure that we are getting the structure of the harmony. In the meantime, if you're not going to be doing it a tempo, going to be taking it at a slower pace, then just find those notes securely, confidently, slowly, and just start learning. And again, it's getting really muddy through here with all these ledger lines. So I would have to very carefully go through, make sure I know exactly what notes I'm playing, very slowly. Measure 87. So those aren't hard to do, those back and forth. As you're doing 87, make sure 87, as you're doing those octave back and forth, do not hold on to tension in your hand, your wrist. Really feel that, like the Tin Man, oil those joints. Make sure those joints are really nice and oiled, they're smooth, there's no tension going on. You can breathe through, relax. We have a ritornando right at the end. Alright, so there's that one. Very interesting. I like it. Some challenging parts to it. But that's going to be the first kind of read-through of it. We'll see how the rest of it goes. Enjoy.